Hey, what's up, Doodlebugs? VIP Army veterans, whatever we want to call ourselves, small balla extraordinaires. Choppadong here, and I'm just going to take this opportunity, since we're talking about it a little bit this afternoon, to quote unquote walk the chalk. It's something I left out of the video yesterday. I kind of tried to do it, but ran out of time and got sent off in a different direction, so I didn't really come back to it like I wanted to. Tried to cover it in the live stream that we did, but let's kind of dive into it a little bit and let's make that the focal point of the video today because, I think it's going to help people, especially newer people. Some of you guys, man, this stuff might just be like repetition and boring and whatever. But you know what's boring? Practicing your free throws, practicing your 5-foot putts, throwing through the tire swing. These things are boring, but this is what makes you great. 80% of the work that you do needs to be on the boring shit because that fundamental practice is what makes you good. It's what allows you to be better at the 20% of things that maybe get you over the hump. But without that 80% of fundamentals, it isn't ever going to happen. So let's just dive in and practice. Practice is finding the chalk. And I can find it really easily using the domination station, setting it up on the main slate once we have ownerships, right? I just sort by ownership. And this is going to be the same thing as using the chalkboard tool, which I'll show you in a minute. But you can go position by position with this tool, and you can look. And what you're looking at, maybe the overall slate, who really comes to the top? Adam Duvall, Aguilar. These guys are going to come up to the top in terms of ownership. Nothing too outrageous, But again, these are GPP projections. Cash game projections are often much higher than these numbers, especially at pitcher, because everybody these days is pretty smart. They lock in on that one safer play and they focus on that. And in a lot of cases in a cash game, you kind of got to eat that chalk at pitcher, especially because if you get off of it, you're really gambling. Your guy's got a high floor. The chalk guy, anyway, has a high floor. And if he's 70% owned and he hits his floor, your gamble was pretty senseless. Unless it goes off, because the chances of it busting are greater than the high floor guy that everybody else is using. And so you're kind of taking unnecessary risk. I would rather take my risk at more volatile positions, like the bats, than in the arms or the pitchers, because the volatility at least makes sense in a position that nobody can predict really anyway. We can predict pitchers okay. Not great, but okay, and so it just doesn't make much sense to me. And I use the number all the time. A hitter gets 3 or 4 at-bats a game, maybe 5. And that's how much opportunity he has to score points and control his own destiny. Whereas a pitcher's going to throw the ball 60, 80, 100 times. He controls his destiny far more. It's the quarterbacks are steady in NFL. Why? They touch the ball every play. Running back doesn't touch the ball every play. We favor those that do touch the ball a lot for obvious reasons. They control their destiny more. That's why wide receivers are more volatile than running backs. A wide receiver might get, 10 targets, 7, 8 catches, and that's a good day for him. But the running back's going to get 20. So running backs tend to be more predictive than wide receivers, who are more predictive than tight ends, who are more predictive than, defenses and whatever. And it's all about how often you touch the ball and how much opportunity you have. And that's why bats are far more volatile than pitching. So there you have it. There you are. But I can go through position by position too, and I can look for the chalk pitcher. Morton and Maeda are going to be kind of tied, 1 and 2. Then there's a drop-off. Catcher, 11% is not that high, especially on FanDuel where it blends in with first base. That's your high point. And then down to 15, down to 14, then down to 11 for Contreras, right? So these 11% isn't a lot between these guys. 21 is pretty serious. So Aguilar is probably the chalk in your cash games at catcher and first base over on FanDuel. Kiki, but see, this is a pretty even spread, not a big drop-off, so these guys are all kind of viable. Donaldson again, 17, 16, 16, 15, so these top 3 are probably viable. Shortstop, 20, 17, 14, a little bit of a drop-off. I like Turner, Baez if he's hot, whatever. I think Baez is at least, I don't think Baez is going to get a 0 today. He is at least going to get plunked in the ass of the pitch, right? I'm only half joking. I think his floor is 3 to 6 points pretty easily. That is if he doesn't snap and get ejected. So you can weigh the risk factor in there and say, okay, he's probably going to get plumped. He's not going to get me a 0. In a cash game, I would rather take a guy that's guaranteed to not get me a 0 almost than a guy who might get me a 0, like a Trey Turner or Jorge Polanco or something like that, right? I mean, they can get you 0. They might hit a home run. Will Baez get a second at bat? I don't know. If you really believe that the Reds are going to throw at him, then, I mean, he's not going to get 4 at-bats, so he doesn't have the opportunity that a Trey Turner has. That's actually a pretty good debate for a cash game and for a safety versus consistency thing, because you kind of got to think, if he's not going to get but 1 or 2 at-bats, maybe he charges, maybe the bench is clear, maybe he gets tossed, maybe it doesn't even get that far, maybe they get tossed before anything even happens. I don't know. Based on last night and Twitter and whatnot, there could be some fireworks in that game. Maybe the whole game is risky. Maybe not. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe they warn both benches before they come out in the first inning and everybody just plays normal baseball. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't even really have a good lean on which way it would go, being that I'm a Cardinals fan or whatever. I mean, I might have a better lean if my Cardinals were involved. But even then, I don't know. I just know it's a risk. It adds a layer of risk to the Baez play. So him being chalk is kind of interesting. Anyway, when you're thinking about cash games and taking as little risk as possible and trying to play the value plays and worrying a little bit more about ceiling for tournaments and stuff, I just don't know how safe a play the guy really is tonight. It's just got an extra layer of risk, and I don't know how to assess how significant that layer of risk is. It might not be anything at all. We might just ignore it. It might be something pretty significant and, again, worthy of consideration. Outfield, again, it's a drop-off from Duvall down to the others, and then the others kind of all blend together, right? So what I'm showing you is FanDuel, DraftKings, doesn't matter. These are all ways to find the chalk. So if I went back to all and then started looking at who am I going to find, well, who am I going to see repeating themselves? I see a couple of Twins, one who is the pitcher, 2 Miami Marlins, a good mini stack for cash. Then down here, there's Cubs, there's a third Cub. I see 3 Cubs before anybody else. There's a third Marlin. So it looks like Marlins and Cubs will be kind of chalky today. I mean, that's pretty much all you need to know. But if I go to the actual chalkboard, if you want to see it in a more visually pleasing way, then you might kick over to the chalkboard tool, which is up here under MLB. All these tools pop out to you when you go to dfsarmy.com. And you're looking at who, again, is leading the way. Charlie Morton and Kenta Maeda are probably really, really close. So use one, use the other. They're not even different price-wise. I don't know who you think's better or who. I don't think you can tell me. You'll have your convictions. I'll probably have mine if I dug really deep into the numbers. But the deeper I dig into those numbers, I swear to God, it isn't going to matter on any given night. You don't know that Charlie Morton's, wrist is bothering him this morning. You don't know if he ate a bad lunch and had a little gurgle in his belly. You don't know. And these things matter. And on a daily game, I mean, you could tell me who's better over the course of the season maybe, but you cannot tell me tonight who's better. So to me, this is just splitting hairs. I'd probably take either one of them over a Lance McCullers. Lance McCullers is fine, but I'd probably take either one of them over a Lance McCullers today because of the $2,000 savings and the fact that everybody else is on him. And I tend to follow the herd in a cash game. Now, if we're talking single entry or 3 max or something like that, then yeah, I'm looking to probably get off of one of these 2 guys. I'm either going to spend up or spend down, Paddock or somebody like that. Because if these guys have the ceiling game and these 2 guys falter in whatever way, then I've got a different lineup construction as anybody else. And it's going to help me in tournaments. It's going to help me differentiate my lineup just right there off the bat, just by making that one move. The rest of it can be pretty chalky. I could still focus on Cubs and Marlins if I wanted to, and probably have different bats because I'm not going to be able to afford, and I'm going to have to take value sooner, or I'm going to be able to afford more, and I'm going to be able to play more studs than these guys up here using these pitchers. That's all it is. That's all this game is. And if I was playing MME, like nickels, quarters, 150 max type contests, then I'm going to have shares of all these guys. I may set, where do I want to be? Well, maybe I want to be half the field on Morton at 10%, 10% on Maeda. That way, if they falter, I'm not too overexposed to them, but if they do well, I've at least got some, and maybe I can make something happen with those 10% of my lineups. All right, fine. Do that. The other guys down in here, maybe I really like a Robbie Ray and say, man, that's way too low ownership for a guy that can post up 60 points. And so maybe I go double or triple the field here and come up to 10% on Robbie Ray. That's another smart pivot to make, okay? So these are just the things that you're going through when you're thinking tournaments, but it all starts with the cash game aspect, trying to figure out where everybody's going to go. So when I come down here, I see Mitch Garver's popular again. I don't know where he was in the DS because we started with Contreras. He was probably tucked away at first base. But at 20% and 20% here, these are your cash plays. Garver for cheap, Aguilar for cheap. You know, why would you pay up for Vladimir Guerrero at first base when you've got such a cheap option here? Well, if you're paying up for pitching, you can't pay up for Vladdy probably. But if you are paying down at pitching, maybe there's a way to get a smidge off of what everybody else might be doing. Okay? Because 19 and 20%, 39% of people are going to have Garver or Aguilar. So those that pay up for Vladimir or pay for Rizzo or whatever are getting a little bit of a different way to go. But again, this is what you're looking for. And when you see this even spread here, there's not a big drop-off. There is a big drop-off here. If this was DraftKings, well, let's look. Let's look at the catcher. Not a big drop-off there at DraftKings, which is interesting. So here, if I see a fairly similar price point at two $4,500 guys in the 20, I'm probably using the $2,800 guy. I'm going to save the money, and then I'll pay up somewhere out here where it maybe matters more, like Chris Bryant, $4,500. If you pay up for Mitch Garver, you probably can't afford, especially if you take an Anthony Rizzo too, you probably can't take Bryant. So I'm going to come over here, probably take Alfaro, and then I'll probably see these guys are all expensive here. That's going to be a hard thing for these guys here, is to then take one of these guys as well. Over here, again, the drop-off is pretty significant. The pricing, they're all pretty expensive. You're not going to get Simeon, you know, and one of these guys, most likely, if you're using two high-priced pitchers. Okay, so again, you're using these numbers to decipher what everybody's going to have to do, and then making your assessment, and then deciding where you want to break away and do something different. And that's how you win tournaments. So I come down here, I'm 15, 14, whatever for these expensive guys. Maybe I can afford it, maybe I can't, but people are going to be paying up. But I don't know how they're going to pay up for Garver. If they're paying up for Turner and Bryant and whatever. So again, if I get a little confused, this is where I might turn around. I would think Jimenez, Ortega, these guys' percentages might be higher because somebody's going to need some value somewhere. They're going to take it out of the optimizer or out of the outfield. I might run to the optimizer, run some lineups through the system and see what it's tending to put together. If I had access to other sites, you know, I'd use their optimizers and do the exact same thing and see if the Army optimizer is giving you different constructions or similar to everybody else. If the Army optimizer is giving you similar constructions to everybody else, well, everybody's going to be probably doing the same thing, and that's going to make it easier for you to see what everybody's going to do and then make your decision where you want to break off of that herd and start doing your own thing. So back to the FanDuel side of things. Again, not a major drop-off, but this is what I would consider the cash viable guys. Anyone that's clustered together at the top, right? When I see a significant drop, say this 4% all the way down to another 3% off of that, I might say these top two guys are the guys. They're the chalk guys. They're the best, smartest, safest plays at the position as interpreted by the public or by our ownership projections. And I think that that's really a smart way to go, especially if you're pinched for time and research. Everybody's going to take value in the outfield. So you're going to see a lot of these guys that are popular in the low threes, high twos, whatever. And it's going to be very important over on DraftKings where pricing is tighter. How else would I go into doing this? Well, if I was going to find my core, I would start at a number like 200 for this lowest minimum ownership possible. And I would set the optimizer up to just shake things up with a couple of uniques and a little bit of randomness, and I would let it go. And it doesn't let me do it for whatever reason yet. So I'm going to drop down and I'm going to see what's going on. Still not enough. That's weird. I don't know why it's not letting me do it yet. But if 160 is the number, it's probably more like 170. I come down 15, 16, 17 points off of 160. I'm down to like the 135 range. So 145 range. So I'd probably build from 140, take 10% off and build from 140. And I would probably build about 25 lineups. I would add more unique players to the mix just to make sure that the optimizer is switching people up. And then I come down here at the end, and this would be my core. So it's not going to do it fast enough. I'm going to run out of time on the video, but I'll post the core in the chat room in Discord, and you guys will see where it lands, and then we'll talk about that more in text form. So peace out, homies. Good day. DFSArmy.com. Shop it on here, and I will see you all later.